Throughout college and beyond, the iPad Pro has been my everyday computer for the most part anytime I'm out of the house. From lunch breaks to long travels and vacations, I have almost always brought my iPad to do numerous things, from checking emails and typing scripts to drawing and playing some games. And even with its faults, I am still enjoying it. Sure, it's still an iPad at the end of the day, with the same old limitations currently, but that's seemingly about to change with the recent WWDC and announcement of the new iPadOS update finally introducing more Mac-like features and systems. So in this video, I would like to give you guys my thoughts on using the newest M4 iPad Pro for just over a year and some of my thoughts on the best and worst features and whether or not this new iPad update will change this iPad in the perspective of most users. Let's get into it. So first, I want to bring up the main question I think most people should ask when buying any new piece of technology in general. Is it worth it to me, and why should I purchase it? Especially with the iPad Pro where you have other options, why would I want to spend almost double the price for an iPad Pro when the iPad Air and base iPad basically do 90% of what the iPad Pro does? And in the past, I think many people would have been pretty hesitant on purchasing an iPad Pro, especially with that elevated price point. You weren't really getting that extra oomph of upgrading in terms of new software features in the past. Now, there are some key hardware upgrades though with this M4 iPad Pro that could be very beneficial depending on your use case. The OLED screen on the Pros are great and vivid, and combined with the Pro exclusive variable refresh rate, make creative hobbies and jobs like drawing and editing photos and videos feel and look amazing. If you want more in-depth details on my art use case, you could check out my video from last year, but my opinion hasn't really changed since then, to be honest. Even using it for dozens of artworks, I still think that this is the best portable drawing experience I've ever used on any iPad, or even like most tablets in general. The extra pencil features like Squeeze have been great for drawing, accelerating my process and workflow without adding significant hoops to learn. This new iPad also was the first to pack in the extremely fast and honestly overkill at the time M4 chip. While the most basic of tasks like web browsing you will barely notice any difference, gaming was a pretty surprising improvement from even my previous M1 iPad Pro. There are a good chunk of good looking games on the iPad nowadays, and the M4 chip is able to handle all of them without major hiccups. And with the big improvements to thermal management, my iPad has rarely ran into any cases where it felt extremely hot to the touch. This was the biggest problem I had with my previous iPad. But with the M4, I could crank up some major settings without experiencing major throttling issues. Now, personally for this case, I haven't really used the full extent of this chipset outside of gaming, but I can see some minor improvements with other use cases like video editing or like intensive CAD design and rendering if you are into that. Overall, these upgrades are great improvements. But the hurdle with an iPad has never been about hardware limitations, especially for the aforementioned pros that they were so targeting on this device. In a lot of use cases, the limitations of iPadOS in general in the past has basically made it impossible to justify spending so much money for an iPad Pro despite the improvements. And it's why a lot of professionals still rely on laptops or Macs to do most of their work. For me specifically, the lack of a proper IDE and terminal experience keep me away from fully committing to only using this device for basically everything. Even in terms of video editing as well, which I mainly use DaVinci Resolve for, there is an app on the iPad that is basically almost fully fledged DaVinci Resolve. But I just find it way more cumbersome to use on the iPad than a typical desktop like I do on my Mac. As a result, I have mainly just used the iPad as well, an iPad. The keyboard that I have is just an accessory that I don't use that frequently, and I tend to use it often to do general lighter weight tasks that I would have done on my Mac. And it has been a fantastic experience overall. The power of having a tablet like this is in the versatility mainly. From sketching to note-taking or video watching, the iPad in itself is an extremely lightweight and flexible platform that can work in a number of ways and configurations, although with those compromises as I noted before. It's a jack of all trades, master of very few in that sense. And that's where iPadOS 26 comes in to try to resolve. A lot of the key areas that felt like restrictions are being changed or removed, and the OS is starting to look like a light version of macOS. I think finally now the iPad is starting to grab people's attention as a potential computer replacement. but you do still need to keep in mind that there are some restrictions that remain and still make it like almost impossible for someone to daily drive. But honestly, outside of those very specific use cases where you need those desktop features, it's really hard to not look at the iPad as one of the best casual use computers out there with the newest update. So, in conclusion, I have enjoyed using this iPad Pro for the past year, with the amazing hardware making it a great tool to use in my everyday life. And the upcoming updates look to be extremely promising to bring more computer-like functionality than ever before, while still providing a good touch-first experience. While understandably, the hardware upgrades in these latest Pro models are not that impactful for most of the things I use my iPad for, and frankly a lot of people use their iPad for, it's those improvements to those niche areas like gaming and art that are such a big improvement that I find the device worth upgrading from my previous M1 iPad Pro. The biggest hurdle that comes with the Pros nowadays, in my opinion, is the barrier of entry. The price is not cheap, and the iPad Air for almost half the price will deliver the same software experience even after the newest iPad update arrives. Unless you are someone who absolutely needs the high refresh rate display or has usages that will benefit from the much brighter and bigger display or perhaps the smaller form factor, it's tough to justify spending significantly more for a Pro when an Air or even an older M series iPad Pro gets you really close to the M4 iPad Pro experience. But if you have the money or you have the use case to justify springing for this iPad, I think you will end up loving what it has to offer for years to come. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one later.